How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Tales from the Darkside. This is Season 1, Episode 22, and this one's entitled Bigelow's Last Smoke. This is from July 9th, 1985, and is directed by Timna Ranon, and stars Richard Romanus and Sam Anderson. The teleplay was by series regular Michael McDowell, based on a story by Ken Haynes and Craig Mitchell. This episode's about this guy. He wakes up in his modern apartment, but soon discovers it's got bars on the windows, the doors are locked, this isn't really his apartment, it's a prison. And a man comes on the TV and talks to him and says, "You can go once you quit smoking." There's a big smoke detector on his ceiling. If he starts to smoke, he'll be tortured with lights and sounds, and he has to survive this psychological experiment in order to quit smoking, you know? And overall, this is a pretty good Darkside episode, a really solid anthology episode, you know? You get, it fits within the half-hour time block really well. It's an interesting concept, and it's also got a bunch of moral ambiguity and some really cool psychological elements. Now, one thing I do have to mention is this story does share a little bit of similarities to Stephen King's short story, Quitters, Inc. In Quitters, Inc., it was a guy, and he makes a deal with an association to help him quit smoking, and they sort of follow him around like the mob. This is much more a 1984 experimental style version of that story, so they have the same root concept, but they go in different directions. And I do have to say that's probably because of the time that this came out. People had been smoking a whole lot, and everybody kind of knew by this point, hey, I gotta quit. And a lot of people were quitting smoking en masse around this time period. And Stephen King was making short anthology horror stories, and so was Darkside, so probably just a case of, you know, this is what was on the culture's mind at this time. But a few things to really think about, you know. Even though less Americans do smoke now, I feel that this plot is still super relevant. The idea of control and, you know, playing with someone, I really feel like you could do a remake of this story where it's someone's like smart speaker and it decides that they're doing something it thinks is bad, and it goes to the lock and locks the door because, you know, locks are now all automated these days. I would love to see a remake of this episode where it was a smart home trying to dictate its owner's life. That would be pretty cool. But another thing I really do like about it is, like I said, moral ambiguity. It never hides the fact that smoking is bad. And when you find out how this guy sort of accidentally signed himself up for this, he did it because his father had actually passed, and he was worried about his own death. He was scared of that. He doesn't want to smoke, but at the same time, the way that this goes about it, he, you know, is being tortured. He's being forced into doing this. And overall, he wants to quit, but you see, you know, where he comes from when he wants to just ignore all this and smoke. You see where that temptation is, and you also see that even though the society sort of has the right goal in mind, like, yeah, getting someone to stop smoking, that's a good thing. Kidnapping someone and torturing them, that's a bad thing, you know? And it's sort of how, you know, like, think of the worst crimes you can do. A lot of them are about taking away someone's freedom, forcing them into a position they don't like, and you really just see how horrific this is. They're doing something that in general is good. getting someone to stop smoking, getting someone to stop killing themselves. But by doing this in such a way that you're torturing this guy and taking away his freedoms, it really shows, you can be bad trying to do a good thing. And it really is a complex thing, And this really is a classic anthology horror mold. The idea of someone sort of playing God. We've actually seen this before in the show. If you remember a little bit ago, there was the story Jinn No Chaser, in which a genie who can't get out of his lamp is torturing the couple that got a hold of it, locking them in their apartment. But this one, random madness and jungle-themed things, So, yeah, a classic anthology horror where someone just has the power to do anything and is locking you up and torturing you. So, yeah, maybe we have seen a similar concept. It's probably done better here, but anyway, a really solid episode. Maybe not the best of the series, but a really good idea. A really good execution. It's pretty cool. Without further ado, I do want to analyze this episode a little bit more. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points. So let's go ahead and do a deeper analysis section. We open up, this man's waking up and stumbling out of bed. He reaches to his bedside table and he's looking for his cigarettes, but there's none to be found, and he could have sworn that he bought cigarettes and put them there, but they're gone now. So he stumbles out of bed, goes about his morning routine, makes some coffee, and then he notices there's bars on his window, and that's not sun coming in from his window. They're actually spotlights, artificial light, being shined in to mimic sun. He's not in his apartment. He's in a prison. And when he says this out loud, there's actually a funny quote. There's this man that's been on the TV kind of watching him that he doesn't notice. And when he says this, the man pipes up and he says something along the lines of, "Congratulations, Mr. Bigelow. You have just struggled to reason out the very obvious." So this guy is pretty sarcastic. And he's going to be saying, look, smoking is bad for you. You know why you feel so sluggish is because you've been smoking. You've been treating your body terribly. We're going to help you out. You're free to leave as soon as you quit smoking. And he's going to go about this thing. It's like it's his own special process. And he has a 100% success rate. Which, yeah, I would imagine so. So he's locking him in, and the man on the TV, he's a really good, evil overlord. You will do as I say, and, really talking down to people. He's really arrogant and controlling, really conceited, a really good evil overlord. This actor does a really good job, like, "Oh, Mr. Bigelow," so that's pretty fun as well. But he's like, "Well, where are my cigarettes?" And he's like, "They're on your bedside table, of course." So now the cigarettes are magically back. But when he goes and smokes, there's actually a big smoke detector on the ceiling. And you don't see him in the same shot with the smoke detector till later on. And I was like, that looks weird. It looks like they made a really big one. And then you see him in the same shot, and you're like, oh, wow, that is a big smoke detector. But whenever it detects smoke, lights, sounds, and a lady comes on the TV and she's like, "Stop smoking, put out the cigarette." And, you see the text on the screen, smoking demerits, and it's going up. And there's, an alarm sound, and there's actually this really cool spiraling light pattern that they're hitting him with. And yeah, psychological torture. Cigarettes are supposed to be where you relax, but they're not going to let him do that. So they start to torture him, and they start to give him cigarettes and taking them away, giving him cigarettes, offering him temptation, but before he gets too comfortable, taking them away, reminding them who has control. and they'll do a few things, you know, where there'll be a bunch of cigarettes, maybe at times they're even raining from the ceiling, and then at other times he's got like one left and he's guarding it with his life, you know. So they really are messing with this guy, and you really see him pushed pretty far. It's pretty evil. There's a few other things. One I really like, at one point he smashes a hole in his wall, and it's not big enough to get out. He can't get out. But there's a guy on the other side, and he can like slide him things through the wall and trade with him, and it's someone to talk to. But it also implies that this is just a whole big block of people they've got locked up and are torturing, you know? So I did like that element. And they also have, at one point, and I feel that this is a really telling scene, he's listening to the radio, and the radio is this sort of PSA propaganda stuff, and it's this host taking callers, and they're talking about things like the effect of secondhand smoke on your pets, or what I want to talk about is the cost. Just think how much money you're spending on cigarettes, you know? And he gets upset, and he rips it out of the wall, and it's sort of the case of what the people are saying on the TV. That's all right, but it's kind of preachy, you know? And it's the fact that you can't just tell people what to do. Everybody on the radio is right, but he is just so cranky and so fed up, he just rips it out and smashes it because that's not what he wants to hear right now. And that's sort of the thing when trying to get people to do the right thing. You can't just tell them to do something and expect them to do it. And in real life, you obviously can't lock people up and just make them do what they should, you know? Fact is, getting people to change for the better is really hard, and in real life requires a lot of work, a lot of compassion, a lot of helping someone out, and it is not easy. And to see them sort of force the process, you know, you really see that he, in some ways, wants to smoke more at times. He hears this radio thing, and he's like, screw you, I want a cigarette. You know, it's actually this sort of psychological phenomenon. They talk about how sometimes people want to do things just because they're forbidden, you know? So it's a really interesting psychological thing, and I won't spoil it, but the ending to this episode is such a good punch, where you're like, oh dang, now we're doing this. And I really do like the ending little bit as well there, even though it's not the biggest thing ever. I'm like, oh dang, that sucks. So yeah, a really good anthology episode. The classic anthology playing God storyline, the moral ambiguity where the bad guys are actually trying to help this guy out. Still torture, but they're trying to help him out. And the classic, you know, evil overlord persona. Really, really cool. And I said it at the beginning, but it would be so cool to do a remake of this episode where it's someone being trapped by their smart house, and whatever the tech overlords want people to be doing, they'll use the smart home to enforce. That would be creepy. But anyway, a solid episode. Maybe not the best thing ever, but definitely a good anthology horror story, and I thought it was pretty fun. To everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Tales from the Darkside playlist. I've talked about all the past episodes of the show, so that's the past 21 episodes. I also talked about the Christmas episodes, did those a little early around Christmas time, and I talked about the Joe Hill comic. So if you want to hear me talk about more Tales from the Darkside, you can find that in this playlist here. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Darkside playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.